Hi, my name is Anja Sims. I practice public speaking for a hobby. I do that with Toastmasters. I've been a Toastmasters member for over 5 years. Toastmasters has the mission to empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. When someone asked me about a year ago what it's like for me to be a Toastmaster, I drew 3 bubbles, and it's those bubbles that I'd like to tell you a little bit about. So the 3 bubbles I drew to describe a Toastmasters club and what it's all about in just a few words were a blue one for the meetings. And if you've ever been to a Toastmasters meeting, I know you know what I'm talking about. They're special. People are getting together to practice public speaking together. And there's always just one person on stage, even if that's an online stage on a Zoom call, one person speaking and everyone else is listening and ready to give feedback on what they've heard. The meetings are of course held by members of the club, and that's really the next thing that's special for me about being part of a Toastmasters club. It's that getting together of kindred spirits who are all getting together to improve their public speaking and leadership skills and are helping each other on the way doing so. And then it goes beyond that really, because we don't just meet at meetings, but we also connect with each other through WhatsApp groups, but also friendships that have grown as a community. And that is based within the club, as well as going beyond the club and connecting with members of other clubs. So when we first joined Toastmasters, I think one of the things that we really need to get used to is that there are so many people around us who are offering tips and advice and are giving us feedback, and who want to just really help us along, and that never goes away. So perhaps we need to learn first to receive graciously. Over time, and for some people that happens very quickly, for some it takes longer, but we then learn to give back to the club, to give back to fellow members, and even after just a few weeks or months, we already have more experience than those who are just newly coming in, and we often surprise ourselves of how much support we can already offer someone when just a few weeks back we thought we knew nothing about public speaking. And I think that's really the beauty of this organization, that there's so much you can receive from fellow club members and in general from fellow Toastmasters, and there is so much that you can give back. So what really matters, and what really for me is the essence of being a Toastmaster, is to get that balance of receiving and giving back within the context of the meetings, of the whole membership base of your own club, but then the community base of the own club, and going beyond that. How you can get the most out of Toastmasters club meetings. It is of course all about giving and receiving. So if you've ever been a guest at a Toastmasters meeting, I very much hope that you would have been warmly welcomed. And that is really what we can give to the guest. The guest is coming to us to experience the meeting. We want to give back to them by really making them feel welcomed. Then when we're meeting in person, of course, there might be a nice venue that we're meeting at, or alternatively we're meeting online, and then hopefully that Zoom meeting is set up really neatly and runs really smoothly. The president of the club will open the meeting with hopefully a fairly inspiring introduction and close the meeting off at the end as well with a few words. You will notice something that I think is really special about Toastmasters meetings. There is a very well structured agenda, and in principle, generally Toastmasters meetings follow the same kind of format with very similar building blocks. It's all about prepared speeches, evaluations delivered on stage for those prepared speeches, but then also some impromptu speaking, table topics, and on top of all of that, we have some additional functionaries who really make that meeting flow well, such for instance the timekeeper, and very importantly the Toastmaster of the day, who holds it all together. And of course we're giving and receiving constantly here all the time. When we're the person on stage, We're giving to everyone else by speaking, but we're also receiving, because we're receiving their energy, and we're also then, after we have spoken, we'll receive feedback from them, which is how we learn at Toastmasters. So, and we will only do that if we're engaged, if we're showing up, if we're taking on those roles, and then in the meetings, we're listening when it's the time to do that, and we're speaking when it's the time to do that. There's one more thing that you might find at Toastmasters meetings, which I think is very special. We really like to recognize achievements and celebrate them. And so that might be something that happens just within the meeting. So when at some clubs they recognize the best speaker of the day, or the best table topic, i.e. which is the impromptu speech, or the best evaluation of the day. So whoever delivered a piece of speaking that just went down best can win an award for that. Not all clubs do that, but many do. What I think is almost even more important is when educational achievements are being recognized and celebrated. And we follow the Toastmasters educational program, which is called Pathways. And within Pathways, people follow various different paths, and they achieve levels within their path. And whenever they've achieved a level, that gets recognized, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Not to forget, of course, there is the big celebration around someone having delivered their first prepared speech, which for some can be quite a hurdle to jump over in their own head. And then when they've done it at the Toastmasters meeting, they'll always say, "It wasn't that bad. I think I may even have enjoyed that." So there's really a lot of fun to be had, and it is all being celebrated. How you can get the most out of being a Toastmasters Club member. It's of course still all about receiving graciously and giving back to the club generously. And one way of both receiving from Toastmasters as well as giving back is to ensure that you have signed up for the Pathways education program. Because when you're delivering from the education program, it will make a lot of sense for everyone else in the club what you're aiming to achieve when you're delivering your speech. Everyone can pretty much speak about what they want to speak about, but only if they're trying to pursue these particular speaking goals, others can really understand what their speech project is about and then give them the most relevant feedback. Talking about signing up and attending, well, you'll only get as much out as you put in, right? So you really got to show up in order to make it happen. And then when you do show up to deliver your speeches or to fulfill roles at the meeting, you want to be well prepared, right? It's not just about giving each other feedback at the meeting, it's also about sending written feedback. When you're evaluating a speech, when you're assigned to evaluate someone's speech, you typically have much more to say than you can fit into those 3 or 3.5 minutes in your evaluation on stage. So you want to really give a written evaluation as well. And you want to give that really in the pre-prepared feedback form, which the speaker can then just file away and keep with their speech project to look back at it later and look at their own progress. Then what we do as well at Toastmasters, we feel that mentoring or buddying plays a really, really important role. We don't have employed tutors or teachers. We all teach each other, and we grow over time based on the feedback that we're giving each other. And it's of course great if at a club there are some more experienced members who feel comfortable enough to take on a formal mentoring role. But if there aren't so many experienced speakers around, or not enough around for everyone to have a mentor, then that's no problem at all. Even with fairly little experience, we can already start to mentor someone because we gain so much in terms of skill and experience within just a few months. When someone new comes to the door, we have a lot to offer to them. But then on top of that, if we're not quite ready for a formal mentor kind of role, then we can just buddy up with someone. And that can happen right from the start, where, for instance, 2 people who've started at the club together and are exploring together how to write their first speech, they can help each other out and bounce ideas around. And why not do that? And then the 2 of them can do some research together and either figure it out if they've got any questions, or they can then go to a more experienced member who would be ready to support and help them. And then from quite early on, but particularly with a little bit more experience in Toastmasters, we're really learning to lead and organize. And that's about things like helping to organize speech competitions, which are very exciting. And it's great to take a proactive role in making those happen, right? But then also a bigger commitment would then be to take on a leadership role within the club and get involved in running the club. And perhaps you are watching this right now because that's exactly what you've signed up for. And if not, I can absolutely recommend signing up for this in future. It is one of the most rewarding things that you can do at Toastmasters, taking on a leadership role and really growing as a leader from doing that you're guiding your fellow club members through the Toastmasters year, which, by the way, runs from the 1st of July to the 30th of June of the following year. Now, everyone who really works on their personal development will probably realize you do achieve the most if you set yourself some goals. So by setting ourselves goals, we can give back to the club, because the more we develop our skills, our abilities, the more we have to give back to the club. So by setting goals for ourselves, we're giving back at the same time, which I just absolutely love. I think that works really well. How you can get the most out of the Toastmasters community. It's still, of course, all about receiving graciously and giving generously. And the very first thing we need to do is engage. Be ready to support each other. Be ready to pay back for the support that we're receiving. And one of the key things that we can do here is to aim to be a role model, just really trying to do the best job we can every single time. Then another really good way of giving back is to be a GE, i.e. a general evaluator. That means we're stepping outside of the boundaries of our own club and we're actually going out to other clubs to deliver an evaluation of their club meeting. For newer members, that can be quite a daunting task, but once you've done it once, I swear it's just so much fun to simply feed back on a meeting, feed back on what you heard and you experienced, and share with others how you found the meeting. It's so helpful for them, and they will also send a general evaluator back to your club where they will support you. And then a bigger scale exchange is, of course, contests. Contests are quite a chunk of work to organize because you need quite a few people. So we hold speaking contests for various disciplines, and that's for prepared speeches, then prepared speeches of a humorous nature as well. And plus we do competitions for impromptu speeches, and then also competitions for evaluations, because evaluating others is such a big part of being a Toastmaster. There are even competitions for that. To organize a contest is, as I said, quite a lot of work. So to get involved, supporting the contest organization at your own club, but then also going outside of your own club by being a judge at someone else's contest at another club, for instance, or even at a higher level as people progress through the various levels of competition. It's just invaluable what you can add here to make to the big Toastmasters community. Another thing that gets organized, which I think is absolutely wonderful, is workshops, educational workshops. Personally, I've learned so much at workshops generously organized by other clubs. I'm sure they got something out of it as well. Certainly the presenter would have gotten something out of it and would have learned something when delivering the workshop, or would have just felt really, really good about themselves for having contributed so greatly to the community. I know that for each and every one of them, I took a lot away from the actual workshop. So I've probably said it quite a few times now, and I'm sure it's clear now. It's all based on reciprocity. At Toastmasters, every club has the same mission, and that is the mission to provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. How can you get the most out of being a club member? It's of course all about the meetings, the members, and the community. They all together make it happen. They offer that platform where you can practice public speaking and where you will receive feedback and a lot of support, but where you also can give back by helping to support events, even as simply as giving feedback yourself and therefore supporting your fellow club members. So it's all about getting that balance right between receiving and giving in the context of those meetings, your fellow club members and the greater Toastmasters community. Hi, it's Anya Sims to talk to you a little bit about what club success looks like at Toastmasters. If you're currently a Toastmasters member, you will probably have a sense for what club success feels like and looks like. You're at a meeting, you've heard some inspiring speeches, and you've witnessed some meeting roles being delivered very competently, very strongly, and you've had a really good evaluation there as well, or a number of them even, where you really feel the speaker probably took quite a lot away from that. And even for me, just listening in, I think I've learned a lot. Now, these are amazing meetings that can literally stay with you all week because they've lifted you up and they mean a lot to you. Those are the amazing meetings delivered by successful clubs. When you look at your fellow members, they're really stepping forward to take on roles, to fill speech slots, to do their best within each meeting. They're highly motivated and engaged. So I think that motivated club members are another clear sign of a successful club. But going beyond that, it's also the strength of the community. And I don't just mean here the strength of the community within the own club. Yes, you want that to be strong. You want people to communicate well within the meeting and outside the meeting to make the meeting happen. But the strength of the community is really also tangible when you know how much members are actually going out to visit other clubs, to support other clubs in their contests and other activities, and how much support the club is also receiving from outside. So that may well be what club success feels like. But many of you will now say, well, that's all well and good, but I think I need some numbers so that I can measure club success. Now let's come to that. Can you measure club success? Oh yes, you can. Key indicators here are the size of the club, then how well members are progressing on their educational path. Then another area that might not be so quantitative, but you still get an indication, is the quality of the meetings, for which there are forms and checklists. And then last but not least, also the engagement and the skill level of the actual leadership team involved. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at each of those aspects. Coming to the first one, looking at the size of each club. Now, you need to have a club of a certain size in order to deliver amazing meetings. Each meeting needs a certain number of people. Now that depends on how long the individual meeting is. If it's just a 1 hour meeting, then it might be 10 to 12 people. If it's a full 1.5 hour meeting, then it's more like 15 people that you need in order to organize that meeting. Now, not everyone can attend every meeting at a Toastmasters club, so you certainly would want to have a membership base bigger than that in order to deliver fantastic meetings. It's not just about the static number of how many members we have at any given point in time. What's really of interest are the trends. It's the trends of adding new members. Are there new members coming through the door? So that's the number of new members in itself. But then also what matters is at what rate are members staying with the club, i.e. are renewing their membership. So every 6 months we renew our membership at Toastmasters, and that really is the time when it might come to light that someone who hasn't been so engaged anymore is kind of ready to leave the club. So what we really want to do as club officers in order to make the club successful is keep an eye on all the members all the way through and just really check what their engagement is and how happy they are, so that we can then see when it comes to renewals that really as many as possible of them are renewing, and we don't get any surprises that people don't want to carry on their Toastmasters journey. So we need to find out throughout the year how happy they are. So these are the numbers around membership base, new people coming on board, and the actual renewals. But how happy someone is actually something that we can see quite well from the metric, the key metric for their educational progress, and that is how many educational awards they are achieving per Toastmasters year. And we would hope that to be at least one educational award, so one level in pathways. And when we look at this across the whole club, it's of course about the percentage of educational awards that are being achieved. So when I've got 20 members, have I got 20 educational awards? A further point, and that may not be an issue in your particular club, is pathways adoption. Not that I would understand it, but some people join Toastmasters without wanting to engage with the educational program that Toastmasters offers. And that is something I find quite tricky to get my head around, because it's one of the most valuable things, apart from the support, of course, from all your fellow club members, etc. But that's really, it's the program. You want to follow the program. You want to follow the pathways that really lead you through that progression as a speaker and as a leader, to also make it easier for your fellow club members to deliver evaluations for your speeches. So everyone gains if you're delivering speeches from pathways. So you would want to have ideally 100% adoption rate within the club. Then also looking at the quality of club meetings. Even though we don't have a lot of quantitative measures there, we have the opportunity to check how good a club meeting is by simply having someone externally come in and deliver an evaluation on the meeting. We call that the general evaluator, who shares how they found the meeting for 4 to 7 minutes at the end of the meeting. We can learn a lot from that. And also internally, members can deliver this general evaluation, and it's often very, very interesting what our internal members have to say about how they're finding our meetings, at least this particular one that they're evaluating. On top of that, a club has an option to take a closer look at specific aspects of their club meetings. And there's a form for that. There's a form for everything at Toastmasters. This one is called Moments of Truth. So it's like a checklist just to see how are we doing, how welcoming are we towards our guests, how well prepared are those who are taking roles, how clear are they on what they're having to do, etc. And then last but not least, the area director, that's the person who looks after 4 to 6 clubs, they will visit each club that they look after twice a year, and they will again provide feedback on that particular meeting, but they'll go beyond that, because they'll spend some time with the president and with the vice president of education after the meeting and ask them some questions to find out more about how meetings are being run at this club, and they will then give their feedback on that. It's of course all about feedback at Toastmasters, but that can offer some great insights to the club leadership team when they hear back from the area director how they found their meetings. So there are a number of qualitative feedback mechanisms that give an indication of how successful the club is in delivering meetings. And then the last aspect to look at, but by no means least, is the club leadership team. And what we really want to look at there is how engaged they are, how and that's very simple things like just making sure that the list of club officers is submitted on time. That's just an admin task, but I think it's an indication when a club gets that right or doesn't get that right. Perhaps more importantly, we want to look at every club officer getting trained. So the area director, the person who looks after 4 to 6 clubs, delivers club officer training not just once in the Toastmasters year, but twice. And ideally all committee members or club leaders should be attending those training sessions, both of those training sessions in the Toastmasters year, because the general perception is, even if they're very experienced Toastmasters, they always have something to take away and to learn from those club officer trainings. And also it's such a fantastic opportunity for the club leaders to network with club leaders from other clubs. And that connection with other clubs will very much determine the strength and success of the club overall. And a little indicator that we like to look at here as well is actually to see, when you look at a club committee where there are officially 7 roles, how many people are actually fulfilling those roles? Do you just have 3 people or so who are each taking on several roles, or do you actually have distinct members of the club who are different members of the club who are taking on these distinct roles? And that again is a sign of health in the club if the committee is well staffed, because it just means that if for whatever reason it gets too much for one person, someone else can take over and support them more easily when there are more people for kind of work to be split amongst. Also, if someone for whatever reason can't fulfill their role for some time, even if they're just going on holiday or if anything happens for a limited period, then it's so much easier if someone else can help out when you have a bigger pool of people there. So really, in summary, the size of the club, the strength of club membership, trends in terms of members being added and not too many members being lost at renewals, as well as the educational progress of individual members, looking at how they're progressing on their paths in the educational system, and how many members are progressing, and how many members are even taking part in the Pathways program. That's a key indicator here. In terms of the meeting quality, yes, you've got the general evaluators who are commenting on at the end of the meeting. Then you've also got moments of truth, where the club itself can take a closer look at the quality of its meeting, review, analyze, and look toward improving. And then, of course, you've got the area director visit, where the area director will further give feedback. In terms of the club officers, the key thing we want to look here is the training of the club officers to take place twice a year, for as many of those officers as possible to take part in the training, and also to see whether we've got a really well-staffed committee, where the various committee roles are actually being taken on by as many people as there are roles. As a club leadership team at the beginning of the Toastmasters year, we might think, all right, we want to lead the club to success. So what we need to do is we need to look at all the things that are happening within the Toastmasters year. We need to set our own goals, and then what we need to do is just fill in a calendar to make sure we've captured everything that needs to happen and have assigned responsibilities within the committee. And we have to jot down our, goals that we need to fulfill in order to be successful. And then we have a plan to move through the year. And that really makes sense as a starting point to achieve the right club size, the right progress for members in terms of education, the well-skilled and engaged club leadership team, and good quality meetings, of course. What club leaders often find when they are starting off at the beginning of the Toastmasters year is that when they look at this club calendar, there is so much going on. It is quite overwhelming. So what we have is what seems like plenty of incentive programs. And as new leaders, we might think, so there is DCP, Distinguished Club Program, then there are the goals of the district leadership team, then there are further incentives provided both by Toastmasters International as well as the district. Whoa, there's just so much going on. Now, I would just like to put everyone's kind of mind at rest here. When we look at these incentives, they're all really just meant to support you as a club. Each of those incentives will be in line with your goals as a club. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at just a few of those. The Distinguished Club Program is probably the first incentive program that any new committee member comes across. I really encourage you to take a look at the Distinguished Club Program Manual. The actual incentives are quite straightforward. I mean, there's some basic admin tasks like submitting a club officer list on time, making sure that renewal payments are submitted on time for a certain number of members, and also goals which are fairly low-hanging fruit. For instance, in terms of gaining new members, to gain 4 new members and then another 4 new members. Now, for a club, that's probably quite achievable. On top of that, the Distinguished Club Program also rewards clubs for members achieving educational awards. And again, that can really help with goal setting within the club committee. The club gets 1 point if 4 members complete level 1, gets another point if 2 members complete level 2, etc., etc., etc. And that, of course, very much depends on where the membership base is at today, whether it's even possible for a club to achieve many of those points. Because you do need members already to be at quite a high level in order to get to level 4 and level 5. And it is a great reward for the club committee at the end of the Toastmasters year to achieve a certain club status. And anyone who's ever been part of a club who's had President's Distinguished status, it can actually be quite an ask for the next club committee to uphold that achievement. And there are various factors at play, and it's not always possible. But of course, as with everything, it's good to aim high and go for it and pursue those distinguished club goals. The district vision. In 2019-2020, the vision for District 91 is that all clubs, so that's the 100% of all clubs, have 20 or more members. Now that clearly is a club size goal, right? And then even the next one, 70% membership retention over the year, which means 80% retention per renewal period, so every 6 months. Again, it's a club size goal. So they really just want to support us here by putting some big numbers in front of us for things that we as a club, as club leaders, would want to pursue anyway. And then last but not least here, every year, every member achieves 1 educational award. That's of course member progress. That's being incentivized here. So if we as a club, which of course we should sign up to these district goals, we know we're on the right track towards club success, because these are all factors that will give us, or these are all metrics that are an indicator of club success. I talked about the busy Toastmasters calendar. Yes, there are a lot of incentives on the Toastmasters calendar. There are a number of membership building incentives, such as the Smedley Award. There are a number more, and I won't list them here and now. District 91 for the year 2019-2020 put out a really fetching Monopoly board that I think kind of lines up all those incentives very well. And the idea is that you're pursuing one after the other as you go through the Toastmasters year. Let me just summarize for you here. Again, it is up to you as a club how many of those you want to pursue. And it can just be helpful for you to look at them on the calendar and say, well, okay, for the Smedley Award, if we aim to gain 5 new members in total across 2 months, the months of August and September, then we can get the Smedley Award. Now, if we add these 5 members, that's of course really good for a membership base, for the strength of our club. And then there are more membership programs throughout the year, and if you add 5 every single time, then of course that puts you into a really good position at the end of the Toastmasters year. So these are not here to overwhelm anyone in any way, but they're really just here as motivators to give you those markers throughout the year for goals to achieve, which ultimately will lead to club success throughout the year. Let's now take a look at the individual member's journey. So we're starting off with a member of the public who's maybe never heard about Toastmasters before. They suddenly hear about your club and they're interested because they want to improve their public speaking. Then they make an inquiry. That inquiry is handled, and this member of the public then becomes invited to a club meeting and is a guest. As a guest, they experience, oh, this club is at a really nice venue, or if there are no in-person meetings at the time, they've got their online video call really nicely set up. Everything is running very smoothly. They will experience how the president delivers an introduction at the beginning of the meeting and then says some closing words at the end. They will see that there's a very clearly structured, well-prepared agenda in which all the roles have been filled. They will experience how there are members listening to each other and taking on those speaking roles and delivering prepared speeches as well. They might notice how at the end of the meeting, achievements are being recognized and celebrated. And they like the experience so much that they want to join and apply to become a member of your club. That membership application gets processed, and then the new member joins the fold of club members. And of course, what we want is not for that club member just to be around for a short period of time, but we really want them to be a member of the club for several renewal cycles. We want to see this member grow by engaging with the club. We want them to grow their speaking skills, their leadership skills, and getting more and more confident, and then renewing and really building up the skills as a speaker and as a leader. On that, I strongly believe that even though the tagline of Toastmasters is "where leaders are made," let's recognize that you'll only develop your leadership skills if you are taking on leadership roles. So what we really want to see individual club members do is take on, whenever it's right for them, take on club leadership roles as well. So run the club. And on top of that, of course, there are so many other leadership opportunities as well, such as helping organize a contest and things like that. But I really feel that members need to take on these opportunities for leadership in order to grow their own leadership skills. So that's a very important part of the member journey. And of course, life circumstances may change, and then the member does decide perhaps at some point to leave the club again. And then we really want to find out what's going on. Why are they leaving? Are they not happy with the club anymore? Or is it simply that they've started a different job somewhere else and the location or the time is just not convenient for them anymore? And with all of that, we do, of course, wish for all the members to experience a strong club community. And that's a strong support within the own club, but also reaching out to other clubs, supporting each other during contest season, and going to other clubs as judges, for instance, or other functionaries, but also exchanging general evaluators between clubs to comment on each other's meetings. So we look at that as the member journey, with the focus really being on the member hopefully being part of the club for a very long time, so that they can really grow and develop as a speaker and leader. Now we can look at the speaking journey and actually turn this into a little bit of a quiz. If we now look at all the roles that are actually available in the committee, plus also, of course, additional roles like, well, first of all, the base of all members, they all get involved in all of this, but also, kind of people getting involved as mentors or as buddies when they're buddy up with each other and support each other. So when we're taking a look now at the kind of list of committee roles plus the members themselves as well, we can ask ourselves the question, how those individuals are supporting a member on each step of their journey. Just as an example, I will just kind of kick us off here with a couple of examples. The member of the public who's never heard of the club before may have stumbled across the club through a social media post, for instance. And the person who may have put that there may, of course, have been the Vice President of Public Relations, if the club has one. Often it's the president who does social media posts, so that's exactly what we would want to be entering here. Who may have made that social media post so that the person has heard about the club? When the person makes an inquiry, it's very commonly the responsibility of the Vice President of Membership to deal with those inquiries. Then when we're looking at welcoming guests, again, it would be the Vice President of Membership who wants to welcome everyone who's visiting, but it's then really also the responsibility of all club members to look after those guests. I've just given you a few examples here, and I would like to now invite you to take a moment, switch the video off, and try and fill in this little quiz by answering with what applies for your club. I hope you had some fun looking at the member journey and trying to capture who does what in your club to support the member on their journey, as well as to create the club community, or who connects the club with others outside of the club community, and also who does those very important activities to do with the club's money and with the club's data, particularly important in this day and age. So looking here at who maintains the club's records. So I hope you had fun doing that. I will not talk you through all the individual detail. I will not read it out to you, but what we will do instead is just really show you some slides with example answers. I point out we are not claiming that these are the only correct answers, because we know that every club might be organized slightly differently. I really hope that this highlights how important it is that the new club committee sits down at the beginning of the Toastmasters year and is very clear on who does what. I think that's a very important part of planning at the beginning of the Toastmasters year. So I'll now leave this slide up for a little while, and then I'll just switch you over to the next slide so that you can compare these example answers with your results. And of course you can pause the video at any time. I'll just switch over to the next slide. And if there were any areas that you weren't able to answer, perhaps if you're not a committee member yourself, or if you're really new to the club, then simply find out who your club committee members are and ask them. Find out from them who does what. I am sure they'd be very, very happy to tell you.